there is no question, there's no question that this is a global operation, and the scale of the operation should be considered as global, and the control issues should be also viewed as very potentially, very likely to be global in nature. Secondly, when you consider the possibility of the introduction of energy sources, and in particular directed energy sources, and you get into the electromagnetics of these operations, you allow for the potential of very direct, I hope we're still there, the phone dropped, but very,
yeah, we're still
very direct control of energy transfer upon a specific location or a region. It's quite possible that it could be at a level of control that many of us would have a difficult time imagining. The the question of whether or not, let's call it the airplane, is the source, at one point almost becomes a moot point. Okay, if you're looking at environmental change and effect, at some point, if the environment has been sufficiently changed and the deed is done, yes, you can spend our life trying to find out whether indeed it is the plane, okay, that is the source. But my contention is that we're far beyond the implications at this point of needing necessarily to have the final question answered and decided as to whether or not the aircraft is the ultimate source of the impact. The atmosphere of this planet has been changed. It has been physically changed. And if you don't think that's possible, it's quite possible because it's been done. 3/4 of the mass of the atmosphere is contained in a layer roughly 7 miles thick. The atmosphere of this planet is very fragile. And, I've looked at this from a logistical standpoint, and it is possible to literally physically change the constitution of the atmosphere. And my claim is that indeed it has been done. My work followed a series of environmental sampling that led me to conclude the existence of a particular class of materials occurring in unusual and expected numbers. And that particular class of materials is what I referred to earlier as ionizable metallic salts. This does start to introduce the electromagnetic aspects of these operations, because an ionizable metallic salt is an interesting entity, and that is, you're talking about basically a particulate that has the ability to become electrically charged if it is subjected to sufficient energy. Two sources of energy that can be considered here would be, number one, the sun. It is actually possible with certain types of elements, particularly those in group 2, group 1 and group 2 of the periodic table, to actually become electrically charged with the energy available within sunlight, particularly the ultraviolet spectrum. In addition, one could introduce energy into the atmosphere, and certainly HAARP, that's really what that place is about, is introducing energy via the magnetic field into the atmosphere. application is consistent with the existence of those materials. What would you do with those types of materials? And that brings up the question of what's called, or issue of what's called a plasma state. And, many of us are familiar with the ionosphere, where you have a layer around the Earth that has a layer of charged particles. That is a plasma. A plasma is an electrically conductive gas. And my work indicates strongly that we must now open up to consideration the alteration of the atmosphere in general, and no longer can we restrict ourselves to the unusual properties of just the ionosphere when it comes to the propagation and transfer of energy. And that list is as follows. The first of those, and this is only one of 7, is what I would call environmental modification and control. Weather modification would be one branch or division of that. I do not, let's say, dismiss the importance or relevance of that subject, but by no means would I consider to be the, let's say, comprehensive intent of these operations. The second would be that of military operations. The third would be that of electromagnetic operations. The fourth would be biological operations. The fifth was a little bit more esoteric at the beginning, but as it was studied, really became less so. And that is actual consideration of planetary and global modification and or scope, literally affecting, let's call it the dynamics of the planet. Again, I'm not saying it's dominant. I'm not saying it's even the case, but I'm saying the data is consistent with that. The next to last one would be that of the development of a rather advanced surveillance system. This is a little bit more on a conceptual level also, but does appear to be quite feasible and consistent. And the last one, probably the most remote of them, but still to be fairly considered, and that is the use of these materials to detect what I'd call exotic propulsion systems. Common language, of course, is UFO, but in terms of technically what I would actually anticipate or expect, it would be detection of disturbances of a plasma or ionic nature.